You have said that Israel will not cooperate with a mechanism that strengthens those who kidnapped, murdered, raped, and tortured our citizens.
Correct. We are in a war now, and we will not finish the war as long as we have 58 hostages in captivity and Hamas is in power.
Is there a way to eradicate Hamas completely other than militarily? Have you ever wondered what it would take to stand up for a nation on the global stage? Think about that for a minute. Well, Israel's ambassador to the United Nations, Danon, is sitting down with me, and he's telling it like it is. We're talking about what it really means to defend Israel in front of the world. And we're talking about a world that has bought in to a PR narrative that makes it not popular to stand up for your country. No fluff, just straight talk. Stick around because this is a conversation that you need to hear. I'm joined today by Israeli Ambassador to the United Nations, Danon, and I thank you very much for taking time to talk to me.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, you are one of the busiest people on the globe right now, I know, and the stakes could not be higher with what you're dealing with, so I know how valuable your time is. Ambassador, you have said that Israel will not cooperate with a mechanism that strengthens those who kidnapped, murdered, raped, and tortured our citizens. That's a quote from you, correct?
Correct.
Any variation from that in policy, procedure, or feelings about the current situation?
Absolutely not. We are in a war now, and we will not finish the war as long as we have 58 hostages in captivity and Hamas is in power. We have achieved a lot in the last 19 months, but we have to finish the job. And finishing the job, it means we bring the hostages back home to their families. I just met a family of hostages, and I told them, we will not forget you. And we mean that when we say it. And also we have to make sure that Hamas will not be able to regroup and attack us again. So I think today what we are seeing that there are new ideas under the leadership of President Trump and the US administration to provide humanitarian support to the people in Gaza, but not allowing Hamas to take advantage of the humanitarian aid.
It's like a double tightrope, it seems, and you probably know that I am a very strong advocate for Israel and the Israeli people, and very anti-Hamas, and I am shocked at some of the positions that I am seeing on American campuses that are pro-Hamas. I mean, it seemed at first they were maybe pro-Palestinian, but that was a thin veil because they're clearly not critically thinking and are just advocating for a terrorist group, terrorists that have killed Americans and taken American hostage, let alone Israeli. But it seems like there are two tightropes that have to be walked here. One is there is a war going on, and so attacks have to be made in Gaza where hostages are being held. So the attacks have to be as surgical as possible, but we know that hostages are being used as shields. So that's one tightrope where you can't just go in and obliterate an enemy when the hostages are being held and used as shields. So that's one tightrope. And then the other is the tightrope of providing humanitarian aid when it's well known that Hamas misappropriates, steals, takes all that away, and it doesn't get to the people that need it the most, but instead gets stolen by Hamas. So how do you walk those two tightropes?
I agree with you, Dr. Phil. It's a challenge. That's why it takes us so long. You look at the map, Gaza is a small area. So why do we need 18, 19 months and we haven't finished the job yet? Because we have to be very sensitive to the hostages and to the civilians. We are doing our best to minimize civilian casualties, while Hamas is doing exactly the opposite. They want to maximize the number of non-combatants that will be injured or died. And we're trying to achieve the opposite. That's why we have to operate very slowly, very carefully. We risked the lives of our own soldiers many times because of that, but we are determined. We act according to our morality, according to international law, and what we try to do is to encourage the population to move from areas that we know that we intend to maneuver in. So it takes time, and also it allows the terrorists to move from one area to another area. That's why it's so sophisticated.
What do you say to the accusations of genocide on the part of Israel when, look, and I'm no politician, I'm certainly no geopolitical expert or historian when it comes to war, but I have done some homework, and I have never seen a country at war that appears to have gone to more trouble to protect the civilian population of an opponent than I have seen Israel do, dropping leaflets, making announcements, warning to vacate an area. This is where we're coming. This is where we're going to hit. This is what we're going to do. Providing humanitarian aid to an enemy, going to all of these steps, which seem to me to be trying to minimize civilian casualties, but yet accused of genocide.
I sat at the Security Council of the United Nations, and a senior UN official, his name is Tom Fletcher, he's in charge of the aid of the UN, a very senior UN official, blamed us for intending to commit a genocide. That was shameful, unacceptable. On what base, on what ground? It's a lie. And he knows that. But still, for many UN officials, they prefer to throw mud at Israel rather than to support the Palestinian cause or the Palestinian humanitarian issues. We will not sit silently. I called this guy and I wrote him a letter that we will not work with him anymore until he retracts those words. Because, a genocide, you have to prove intention. We have seen genocide in the past. Our own history, we just marked 80 years for the liberation of Auschwitz 80 years ago. So how can you come and make that comparison? And it's not the first time. I have seen UN ambassadors comparing between the Holocaust to what's happening in Gaza. And like you mentioned, Dr. Phil, we do everything we can to minimize civilian casualties. 2,000 Israelis were killed since October 7th, and still they are trying to blame us, the victims. So the days when Jews were slaughtered and there was no response are over. The days when we ask for permission to protect ourselves are over. Today we have the IDF, we have the capability to protect ourselves, and I think every other nation would have done the same after October 7th.
It seems to me, and tell me if I'm wrong, Hamas had to have the ability to predict with 100% accuracy what was going to happen on October 8th. They had to be able to predict, after what happened on October 7th, exactly what Israel had the capacity to do, the war capability. They knew what Israel had the ability to bring to Gaza in retaliation for what had been done. They could predict it with complete accuracy, and they did it knowing that, and they retreated to Gaza, hid among a civilian population, hid in hospitals, hid in schools and civilian areas, which, as I understand it, is a violation, and did so anyway. What would those that criticize Israel have them do in the alternative?
Well, I think, those who criticize us, they are hypocrite, because we have seen what happened on October 7th. We have seen the cruelty of the enemy. And, the Hamas don't really care about the future of Gaza. They care about the jihad, the fight against Christians, against Jews. That's their essence. And I think we realize that we have to make sure that they will not be able to come back again. And that's why when people tell us and encourage us to finish the war now, and tell us, well, it's enough, let's wrap it up, we tell them we cannot wrap it up, because if Hamas will stay there, it's a disease that will come back, and we will not allow it. So I think for the future of the people of Gaza, not only because of our self-interest, for the future of the people, We have to make sure that Hamas will not be part of the equation.
Is there a way to eradicate Hamas completely other than militarily? Homeowners, when's the last time you checked on your home title? If your answer is never, then this is for you. Scammers are stealing titles and your equity is the target. Criminals forge your signature and just like that, your home title can be transferred out of your name. That's why I partnered with Home Title Lock, so you can find out today if you're already a victim. Use my promo code Phil at HometitleLock.com and you'll get a free title history report. Plus, you'll get a free trial of their $1 million triple lock protection. That's 24/7 monitoring of your title. Urgent alerts to any changes, and if fraud does happen, they'll spend up to $1 million to fix it. That's HometitleLock.com, promo code Phil. Is there a way to eradicate Hamas completely other than militarily?
Yes, I think one other option, that they will agree for deportation, that they will understand that they lost and they have one way out. So you can go on a boat and they can go to meet their friends in Algeria, in Turkey, you name it, Dr. Phil, you choose a place that will accept them. That's an option. Otherwise, we'll have to go and defeat them. The same way that the Allies defeated Nazi Germany, or the fight that the US had to fight Japan before World War II was over. It was hard. You paid a heavy price, but you finished the job. So those are the two options.
So they either have to withdraw, get out, and turn the country back over, or they have to be eradicated militarily.
Exactly.
Is there a difference? And I've asked, I can't find somebody that can give me a definitive answer to this, so it may not be an answerable question, and if it's not, then forgive me. But is there still a difference between Hamas and Palestinians? And the reason I ask that is because when I visited the kibbutz, different kibbutz, I heard people that survived tell me that when they were hiding and in their safe rooms or hiding somewhere, they heard hundreds of women and children flooding into their homes, rifling through their belongings, taking their things, looting their homes, taking their belongings, and all of that. And for the number of Hamas invaders that came across, it didn't seem like there were that many that there could be that many family members. It seemed like there were Palestinians that flooded through and invaded those kibbutz and looted those homes.
Absolutely. We have the videos and we have the data. So it wasn't only Hamas terrorists who invaded Israel on October 7th. That was the first wave. But when you look at the other waves who came throughout the day, you had ordinary Palestinians who broke the fence and took part in the atrocities. And you're talking about the elderly. You know, there's a famous picture of a crippled Palestinian guy that holding his crutches. He crosses the fence and he gets into the kibbutz in order to steal and to look for hostages. That's an absurd. And I think that today, what we don't see in Gaza, you don't see any organization, any movement that actually speaks against Hamas. And I ask myself, how come? You don't have like one organization? You know, we offered a lot of money, $1 million, for anyone who would give us information about the whereabouts of the hostages. We haven't received any calls. So I think the culture of hate infiltrated the Palestinian society for so many years, and now we need to uproot it, and it's going to be a long process.
Are they not responding out of fear, or are they not responding because they've been brainwashed to supporting Hamas?
Well, I think it's a mixture, but I think that they are afraid. And we have seen the way Hamas treated people who collaborated with Israel. They executed them on the spot. And I think that's, you know, it's not only in Gaza. In many Muslim countries, you have this challenge that, you know, you have the radicals who are organized and they motivated to take over. and you have people who are silent, and they allow the radicals to take over. That's what happened to Gaza. We left Gaza in 2005, 20 years ago. We gave the keys to the Palestinian Authority. We told them, go build your own future. We are out of Gaza completely. No occupation, no settlements, no military. They had an opportunity to prosper, to build a new Singapore, a new Dubai of the Middle East. But what happened? Hamas wasn't the majority. But they, with force and radical ideas, took over the Gaza Strip, threw the Palestinian Authority leadership out of Gaza, and since then, they control Gaza. So sometimes you see that the fact that the majority is weak, it allows the radical to take over. That's the problem we are facing in Gaza and in other Muslim countries.
That's astounding to me. And is the United States still, through NATO and other agencies, funding Hamas?
No, it's not happening. Unfortunately, I see some of the UN agencies that allow Hamas to infiltrate, like UNRWA and other UN agencies, that you see funding. So, the US gives money to the UN, and then the UN gives money to Hamas. But directly, I don't think the US is actually supporting Hamas organization.
Well, I don't think they're giving money directly to Hamas. I can't find any evidence of it, but are they giving it like to UNRWA that does pass aid or money on to Hamas?
So the US, there was a law that passed in the House that stopped funding to UNRWA, which is a very important legislation, and I hope that more countries will follow the US on this issue. But there are other UN agencies that the US should look very carefully what they are doing and how they spend their money.
And what are those agencies?
Well, the UN, it's a huge organization, and I think it's important that the US will be involved in the UN, but they have to make the distinction. They have to review and to look what the fund is used to. For example, you have an agency that is doing advocacy for the Palestinians at the UN, spend millions of dollars every year. And you look at the activities, it's all hate and incitement against Israel. And I ask myself why the UN should fund this agency that promotes hate and violence.
The UN, it is huge, and there are so many different agencies, factions, or places money goes. But you still believe in the UN, right? I used to sleep terribly, but thankfully I found Beam's Dream Powder, a science-backed, healthy nighttime blend that's packed with ingredients shown to improve sleep. Plus, Beam is founded in America and run by people who share our values like hard work and integrity. Their Dream Powder is made with a powerful blend of all natural ingredients: reishi, magnesium, L-theanine, apigenin, and melatonin. Beam's already improved over 17.5 million nights of sleep, helping people wake up and feel their best. Here's the deal. Beam's giving my listeners the ultimate Patriot discount of up to 40% off so you can try their best-selling Dream Powder. Visit shopbeam.com/Dr. Phil and use code Dr. Phil at checkout for up to 40% off. That's shopbeam.com/Dr. Phil. Code Dr. Phil for up to 40% off. Support an American company. Invest in yourself and get your best sleep tonight. You still believe in the UN, right?
Well, I believe that we should be part of the UN, but we need to reform the UN. Because if tomorrow morning the US and Israel will decide, you know what, we had enough, we want to quit the UN, then you're going to have other players that will be very happy. That will take over the organization completely. It will be easier for them to act against democracies around the world. So I think we should be there. We should fight the fight. But I think it's about time to reform the UN, and I think the US should lead, because the US give a lot of funding to the UN, and they have the power to demand more than Israel. So I do believe in the involvement in the UN, but not the way it's being run today.
Yeah, it seems like we have to stay at the table and be a voice, because it seems like if we don't have responsible people talking about important matters, then we're going to have irresponsible people talking about important matters, and we've got to be a voice at that table.
Absolutely. And we need the moral clarity of the US to lead the UN. And I think today the US is there, but they can do more. And I believe that the new administration will be able to to achieve more at the UN.
You talk about moral clarity. I wonder, I hear, and again, and I'm not trying to feign ignorance here. I'm being very honest when I say I don't understand all of the inner workings in the Middle East. I don't pretend to. I rely on experts like yourself about these things. But when I hear about proxies for, like Iran, for example, I wonder why our policy across time has been to allow the proliferation of these kinds of proxies with Iran or Lebanon, for example, which leaves Israel at times facing 5 front potential threats or wars instead of stopping that and shutting it down. Why is that seemingly vague when in reality it isn't vague at all? Or is it? It doesn't seem to me to be vague at all.
You know, Dr. Phil, the problem with bad actors is that no one wants to deal with them. You know, it's like NIMBY. People say, well, it's not in my backyard. Somebody else should take care of that. Why should I deal with this bully? And that's what happened in our region. No one wanted to take care of those bad guys. So we had to take care of Hezbollah and deal with Nasrallah and his followers. We have to take care of the Houthis in Yemen who are sending ballistic missiles into Israel. Apparently, we will have to take care of Iran in the future. I hope it will not be only us. And I'm saying it to my colleagues at the UN, maybe if you think you ignore them and they're not threatening you today, but they will get to you. You know, look at the attacks from Yemen. You know, they attack Israel with ballistic missiles and UAVs. Those UAVs can reach Europe today. And give them a few months or few years, they can reach the US, the shores of the US. So maybe for now you can avoid them and say, it's not our problem. It's maybe Israel's problem. But in the long run, you know, it's going to be the problem of the US and the problem of Europe as well.
Well, that seems to me to be the issue with Hamas. They don't want to just kill all of the Israelis, I mean, from the river to the sea. Maybe that's the mantra today, but if you drill down just a level or two more, they want to take out the West as well. America's in denial. First Israel, then America. I mean, that's just an extension. And it's kind of like we talk about if, you know, sometimes you get an infection in your throat or something, you go get a prescription for antibiotics, you know, it says, take all of these for 7 or 10 days. Take them all, even if you get to feeling better. And the reason is, if you take only half of the prescription and start feeling better, what you've done is you've killed off all of the weak bugs and you left the strong bugs and you stopped taking the prescription. Then the strong ones that held out, they start proliferating and they're going to come back for sure. And by analogy, that's how I feel about getting rid of Hamas or the Houthis. If you go 3/4 of the way and stop, you've left that core and it's going to start proliferating again and it's going to come back. You've got to take all of them out. You can't leave the core. You can't leave those that maybe started it in the beginning, because they're going to start recruiting. They're going to start getting funding. They're going to start getting a foothold again, and they're going to come back at you, maybe in 3 years, maybe 2 years, maybe 5 years. But if you get them all but the strongest ones, they're going to come back at you again.
Absolutely. And look at all those radical organizations like ISIS, Al-Qaeda. They all started in the Middle East, but they didn't stay in the Middle East. They always looked for ways to hurt Americans, you know, 9/11. And you know, the problem we have that, you know, we live in democracies. We want to live normal life, you know, to raise our children, to have a good life. Christianity and Judaism is about family values. But we have to realize that there are other forces who are not living the same values and dreams that we have. They want to see the jihad. They want to see the fight. And for us, we have short memory. Because, you know, we forgot what happened to us on Yom Kippur in 1973. And we thought it can never happen again, and it happened on October 7th. And same here in the US. When you speak about 9/11, people forgot what happened here, but it can happen again. So we have to deal with those radicals, and we should not wait for them to obtain nuclear capabilities and then to decide whether they're going to use it against us or not. We don't have that luxury today to be naive. We have learned from history.
What do you think about the protests that are happening on campuses around the United States today, particularly the Ivy League campuses, with these protesters that are rallying and protesting in support of Hamas or Palestine and describing Israel as an apartheid state, and we talked about genocide earlier. Where do you think this is coming from? Why do you think there's such a misperception of what's really going on? I mean, calling Israel an apartheid state, when you have Arab judges, you have in the government there, you have Arab judges putting Jews in prison, and they call this an apartheid state. Help me with this.
Well, first, I beg to differ with you. I don't think it's a protest. Protest is when you go and you hold a sign and you...
Good point.
But when you see what's happening on campuses, those are rioters.
Yes.
It's a riots when they attack students, when they go into the library and smash everything there. That's a riot. And I respect freedom of speech, and I think it's legitimate to criticize Israel. But what we are seeing, it's organized. It's trying to show that they can control the universities. And I think the universities were very weak in their response. They shouldn't have allowed it to get to this point. And I think, Jewish students should feel safe everywhere. And those, many times when I go to universities to speak, and you always have few people entering the room and trying to sabotage the event, I say, it's okay, let them stay. And then, what I do, Dr. Phil? I tell them, you get the floor. You want to ask me a question? Let's have a debate. You want to speak about something? And then when you start to have a dialogue, they have no clue. You have no clue about what is Palestine, what is from the river to the sea. They have no clue. So somebody is very organized, is paying them, is inciting them, and they go to the streets to attack Jews. But you understand that there is no base for that.
I feel like a lot of them really don't know what they're out there for. So you guys are all students now?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is something new as far as this escalation, right?
Yeah.
But have you felt a tension on campus since you've been here? I mean,
the
was it
past
here from the
7
minute you got
Especially
here?
since October 7th.
Yeah.
It's been
It
especially
really
bad.
ratcheted up after October 7th?
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like at some point you're not feeling very comfortable to share where you're from because some people have different reactions. Like at some point we went to the dining hall and we were sitting and we spoke in Hebrew and the guy next to us just got up and left. So there were like little incidents that, you just like sometimes, okay, I will just be quiet. I won't say where I'm from, just not to escalate things or to hear anything hurtful.
I felt unsafe on campus. I went to the dean after a girl hit me. I was wearing a yellow pin just like this. I was standing in line at the student store and some girl just hit me, tried to yank it off and went away. So I went to the police, I went to the dean. I told the dean what happened. He seemed like he didn't even know what a kafia is. He was so he didn't even know what was going on.
Really?
Yeah, I told him about a different protest that happened where they made a statue of a pig that's holding money in one hand, and there's the Israeli flag on what seemed to be like a fire.
It's the same rhetoric, same tactic. Jews are pigs holding money, and it's really sad to see that history is just coming back all over again.
And you're quite right. When it goes from speech to action, destruction of property, intimidating students. I was on the UCLA campus when they took down the encampment, and I was in the Halil talking to Jewish students earlier that day, and they were saying, our lives are threatened. We're blocked from going to class. We've paid our tuition. We have classes to get to. They make a human chain, won't let us get to our classes. We call the university police for assistance, and their response is to disconnect. We say, where are the LA police? They say we cannot come on campus unless we are invited. And we're not invited, so we can't come. And you guys all agree with free speech, right?
They have a right to say what they want to say.
an
When it
extent.
crosses into being hate speech, when they call for genocide, when they call for rising up and become violent against us, it crosses a certain line. And this is when I feel like the administration needs to come in. They can have our back. They can maintain a secure environment for everyone on campus. And they have not done this.
When we see people on the other side that are chanting death to Israel, death to America, that should wake up America, not just the Israeli and the Jewish community, that should wake up America.
There's an encampment in the middle with hundreds and hundreds of these activists. All the tents look the same. They look the same as they do on the Harvard campus. And I mean, it looks like they've been issued from some central location. There are hundreds of yards of 3/4-inch plywood wrapping this encampment, and that costs like 50, 60, 70 bucks a piece for these sheets of plywood. Where do they get the money for this? The students don't have that money. That's got to come from outside.
Absolutely.
Mistake after mistake after mistake.
New revelations from legal experts. This investigation was gravely mishandled.
Nothing was properly investigated.
Blood doesn't run uphill. The blood couldn't have streamed the way it did unless her body had been moved. Mystery and Murder, analysis by Dr. Phil. Was this a suicide? Was it a murder? That's up to you. Available on your favorite podcast app. Subscribe and follow. Where do they get the money for this? The students don't have that money. That's got to come from outside.
Absolutely. It's well-funded, well-organized, but I blame the universities because the weakness they showed, that's a sign of anti-Semitism. And I will explain it why. Because ask yourself if there were similar demonstrations, not against Jews or blocking Jews from entering the library. If it was, the same demonstrations against white students or against black students or against Latin students, what would be the reaction of the university if that was the case? If you had a group of students saying, we don't want to see Latins entering the library, they would have stopped it immediately. On the spot. But when it comes to Israel, or anti-Zionist, or anti-Jewish, all of a sudden there is a debate. Let's think about it. Let's talk about it. And that's when you use different standards, or double standards, that's a sign of anti-Semitism.
Where do you think that comes from? Why do you think that anti-Semitism is acceptable or tolerated or even encouraged, whereas if it was Black Lives Matter or it was Asian, it's a completely different story?
Well, I don't think I have a good answer. Unfortunately, we are here for many generations, so the anti-Semitism was here all the time. You can find it, you go back in decades and you find it. And I think every once in a while, the occasions where it raises its ugly head. That's what we are experiencing today. But I think it was here. It was here, but we didn't feel it.
I think there's a new breed to it, though, and I wonder if you can comment on this. I think there's a new breed of anti-Semitism that it doesn't flow like from Nazi Germany and that darkness. I think there seems now to be the young generation wants to see everything in terms of oppressed and oppressor. And even without that history, they want to put Israel in the role and the Jews in the role of the oppressor and the Palestinians in the role of the oppressed. And if they cut it into those two, they partition it in that way, then that answers their question. And they seem to think they're fighting for the underdog, and that's all they need to think about. which is way oversimplified and, by the way, so inaccurate. If there's someone that's been oppressed, they just seem to have gotten into the chain way late. Too many links have been ignored.
Yeah, and the naivete of those claims, because, you know, when you speak with a terrorist and we interrogate them after we arrest them, you realize that they are not about, you know, getting more land or more money. For them, it's, you know, existential that we will not be there completely.
Right.
And not only in Gaza or in Judea and Samaria or in Jerusalem. They don't want us in Tel Aviv, in Haifa, or even here in New York. For them, there is no place for any other religion rather than their radical beliefs.
Yeah. And New York is the largest Jewish population outside of Israel, certainly in the United States. And it's a fight that goes on here, like Columbia University. And fortunately, we have a mayor here, in Eric Adams, that is fighting to end anti-Semitism here. So, you know, that's a good thing. I want to tell you that my platform is your platform. And if there's a way that I can help and get this message out and keep this message out, then please know that
Absolutely.
I'm
I want
here.
to thank you, and I want to invite you, Dr. Phil, to come to the UN. We have some friends there, and maybe you can interview some of the friends of Israel at the UN, and we can continue the discussion in the halls of the UN.
I would love to do that, and I will take you up on that. I very much want to stay part of this and keep a bright light on over this. We have to end this conflict and this anti-Semitism. So I'm on your team.
Thank you very much, Dr. Phil.
Thank
It's
you.
a pleasure. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thanks so
Thank you.
much. Well, the discussion doesn't stop here. Ambassador Danny Danon has given us a rare look inside the high-stakes world of global diplomacy, where every decision carries weight and every word matters, especially when hostages, their lives, their futures hang in the balance. I want to thank Ambassador Danon for giving us the time, and I want to thank you for joining in on the conversation. You can follow and subscribe to the Dr. Phil podcast on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for listening.
You're going into something that's dangerous. You're by yourself. I've gone into groups for 5 months and seen some of the most horrific hate.
It's not just playing a role. You have to immerse yourself in what you're doing, right?
Yes, it's not my normal thing to go sacrifice a goat and drink its blood, you know. Definitely not my thing to be dropping racial slurs all day.
The Dr. Phil podcast. What's the most important thing to say to people about how they can contribute to stopping this? Coming up on your favorite podcast app. Subscribe and follow.